going on, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George and Goes are back with another MMA superstar. This time we get to talk to Josh Emmett, who's going to be headlining the UFC Fight Night card coming up on June 18th in Austin, Texas. His opponent that night, Calvin Kattar. They're going to go 5 rounds on ESPN. Your prelims are on ESPN2. Big show. Welcome back, Josh. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, you guys.
Yeah. I was thinking, Josh, I'm going to get right into it, bro. I remember going back when the fight fell off for Volkanovski and Max Holloway, and there was contenders to fill the spot. No disrespect to the zombie. He's got a name. I realize that. Yeah. He's fought for the title. But I remember a few people saying, well, what about Josh Emmett? 4-fight win streak, 17-2 overall. As you know, it didn't happen, right? Now, we get to the fight. Zombie fought, Volkanovski fought, great. But then Volkanovski had a message. He said, get your shit together, featherweights, or something along the line. And I was thinking back, wait a minute, you're the one that chose Zombie. There seemed to be more qualified people, or at least people more on a roll that could have been your opponent that night. Did you feel any of that same vibe as well, or had you already brushed it aside once you weren't the
yeah, obviously when the fight between Max Holloway and Volkanovski fell off, I was I was campaigning. I was like, I want that fight so bad. And I know my name was definitely in the discussion, like between the Zombie and I, and I get it. Korean Zombie has a bigger name. He has a whole country behind him, things like that. He's fought for the title, like you've said. He's a phenomenal fighter as well. But it just didn't materialize for whatever reason. And I heard him say that, but then later on, I saw on Twitter that his boxing coach actually he had good things to say about me. He said I don't know if you guys saw that, but he was saying that all the guys that aren't that active and they're kind of sitting on their hands, and they just assume they should be next in line because of the number, even due to inactivity. He said, we'd rather fight a guy like Josh Emmett, who is staying active, is constantly trying to fight when I could. And so I saw that. So that was awesome, but everything kind of works out, for a reason. And I truly believe that. I've always said that. And, now here I am against a huge, main event on ESPN, like you said, against a tough opponent. And, Calvin Kattar, he's the only one on my mind right now, and my sole focus is on him.
Yeah, no doubt. I just wanted you to know that even though it didn't work out, there was a strong push for your name, and it should be that way. And I'm trying to build this fight up as well, because Kattar versus Emmett is awesome, but at the same time, I remember the champ saying that, and I kind of just thought to myself, well, like, you went with the guy that was 17-6 off a 1-fight win streak, 3-1 in his last 4, not as active as the guy that was 4-0, 17-2 overall. Like, you almost put yourself in that position. But yeah, you're right. That's him. He did his thing. You got Kattar in front of you, and everyone's going to talk about Kattar's boxing. And you obviously just talked about how there's an appreciation from the Volkanovski camp about your boxing, but I wanted to put it in your hands. Talk about your boxing. I believe Rodriguez has been your coach for a long time, but perhaps you go to other gyms. But let's not discount that of your last 5 wins, 3 of them, the hands have got the job done.
Yeah, no, I know Kattar has great striking. He has slick boxing. I think I have really good boxing too. You know what I mean? Like, I've worked with my boxing coach, Joey Rodriguez. I don't even know how many years, 7, 8 years, something like that. Him and we've been working year round this whole time. I've gone to multiple boxing gyms, and a lot of the like the boxing coaches, they think I'm a boxer, but then Joey's like, no, he comes from a wrestling background. This was just like in the past when we started going into these gyms, and I spar one of my good friends, Ruben Torres. He's a pro boxer. He's really good. I'm about to go over there and spar him now. So he's always been a huge help for my career. And, it gives me those good looks and stuff like that. And even though boxing is different than like MMA, because MMA, we have those 4-ounce gloves. We're not just staying in the pocket and just throwing punches and bunches, just combination, rolling, slipping. You can't shell up with 4-ounce gloves because those can kind of sneak in between the guard, whereas boxing, you can just do that. So when I box boxers, I feel like, you wouldn't be able to tell I look like a boxer, but then MMA is a little different. But yeah, I think my boxing is great too. So I'm looking forward to getting the best Calvin Kattar so he can bring out the best in me.
Quick sidebar here. When you mentioned the shell, how do you think Overeem was sometimes able to pull it off? Because he sat in front of some heavyweights and did the same thing. Some of them would slip through, sometimes they wouldn't. But you're right. That shell, those gloves are a lot smaller. But did you ever have any thoughts when he used to do it?
Yeah, no, you're right. Like, you can do it, and you see multiple people do them, but I'm just saying it's a lot more dangerous if you
Yeah,
shell up like that with a 16-ounce glove on. That boxing glove is not getting through there unless they come up with some type of uppercut. But with those 4-ounce gloves, you can split straight through the guard. You can definitely hit them with the uppercut, and then you can kind of come around their guard as well, and kind of sneak one in by the temple or on the side of the jaw. Yeah, and I do that in my fights. You've seen I'll shell up and do stuff, but as long as I'm biting down and keeping my chin down,
right.
it can work as well. But it's just not as efficient as boxing. You can just sit there in the pocket and just put your hands up, and no gloves getting through there.
Yeah, and plus those ropes allow for a little bit of movement, and then the
Yeah,
boxers tend to move
good
as long as
old.
you have a little bit of that going on. Yeah. Listen, we always hear about jujitsu guys, or maybe people that have gotten better at jujitsu. They'll tell stories about the first time, man, some white belt got me. Wrestlers, people that didn't wrestle much, but then they became better wrestlers. Oh, I used to get tossed around. How about you? You have a good story you can share about the first time you started learning boxing, just how awful you may have been, and then talk about the progression, how better you got at it to where you're at now.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like with anything, if it's new to you, it's you're not going to be as good. But for me, I feel like I picked up boxing fairly quick, just because I feel like I'm an athletic person. I also I feel like it was somewhat similar to say wrestling, like as far as like stance goes. Obviously, wrestling, you're a much lower and wider base, but I feel you still don't want to cross your feet. So I'm just standing in a taller position, and then I just feel like, I don't know, it came pretty natural to me. But then obviously the progression of my boxing, working with Joey, sparring all these boxers, putting in those hard sparring rounds over the years, then I progressively got better and better, and just more comfortable with just sitting in the pocket and blocking and countering and vice versa, rolling and just moving, whereas first, when you do start out, you're maybe just on 1 or 2 punches. And I guess I can go back to, like, say, sparring. It's like, maybe certain people, when they get into it, you're kind of like wincing or turning away when people are throwing at you. So you just got to get comfortable with that. It's a fight. You're going to get punched. So just barely slipping and just letting those punches go by, or maybe taking some, and, just keeping your eyes on the target the whole time. And, so yeah, there's definitely been a huge progression in my boxing over the years, and I credit a lot of that to my coach Joey Rodriguez. He's helped me in so many ways, and yeah, I'm just super grateful for him.
Josh, so going back when we first started our show 15 years ago, these interviews were a lot different because back then the matchups were not lopsided, but you'd have your striker versus grappler, and the striker really had a little bit of a ground game, but not very much. Now everything's a little bit more even with you guys, especially your division, which is one of the best divisions out there. So when I break down you and Kattar, man, you guys are just so good at just about everything. But the one thing I wanted to see if you could break down for me, the mental side of this game, because I think that's what this fight's going to come down to. Calvin has great coaching, so do you. But I notice sometimes Calvin, man, he just gets wrapped up in this firefight. And both of you guys are just so good at what you do that it scares me that what might actually be a tactical fight can just turn into, bravado and just go. Like, how difficult is it to kind of center yourself, tune out the fans, and just kind of stick to a game plan when you got a guy like Calvin Kattar in front of you?
Yeah, and that's one of the things. I feel like he's good everywhere. He's also, some of his strong attributes are, he's so damn tough. You know what I mean? And he has that will to win and that heart. So he's going to keep coming forward. He's always in the fight. He's always dangerous. But as far as me, it's like, man, I just have to stick to my game plan. I have to just like be present in the moment and just stay calm. You know what I mean? And like you're saying, it is kind of tough when the fans are going crazy. I feel like I feed off the energy, so it kind of ramps things up a little bit more. But yeah, I have to be strategic in my game plan, and just, I have to keep moving, and just kind of implementing everything, that I've been doing in training and stuff like that. And I feel like if the best me shows up on June 18th, there's no one in the world that can beat me. And I just have to stay calm, like I said, and take it one round at a time for potentially 25 minutes.
You brought up boxing earlier, and George and I grew up in a kind of boxing era. That's what our father loved. It's what we grew up doing and watching. Um, but the one thing about boxing was, the heavyweight was always the king, right? And he's the one that made the most. But as time went on, guys like Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto Duran, Julio Cesar Chavez, people tended to order those pay-per-views because they were great fighters. They put on great fights. They had great skill, and the money started to catch up a little bit to the lighter weight classes. Now you see guys like Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao pulling in big bucks. In MMA, your division being as good as it is, do you feel like those smaller guys, even the flyweights, the bantamweights, eventually that shift will happen where the money actually is bigger, a little bit more towards the bottom than it is at the top?
Man, just being in one of those weight classes, yeah, I hope so. I feel like, everyone likes the heavier weights, like you were saying too, just because they have a lot of power and people want to see big knockouts and finishes. But I feel like anyone, like even the flyweights, like they possess power. Like those guys hit hard as hell too. They're super technical. I feel like they're faster. Their endurance, they can go for days. So it's I hope it shifts that way. I hope a lot more money is brought to the lighter weights, and especially myself in the division and things like that. It would just be good for the sport and good for the athletes, because we do put so much like on the line, and whether it's like even just like physically our bodies and health and things like that. It's like I think it'd be awesome to see something I don't implemented in the UFC, whether it's higher pay, or it's like, say some type of structure or tier system. Say you get to a certain amount of fights to where you become like vested with the company. So then after your career, maybe you have medical insurance like the rest of your life, or you get some tiny small pension, something like that. I know a union probably won't happen in my career. But it's like you never know. I just hope something like that can maybe come into play as well.
So do I. I think you guys deserve it, and you're right. You're 37, and you probably have a few more years of fighting. But I think I think it'll arrive at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I agree. Because a lot of the fighters that we used to cover early on, some of them are struggling right now, and they could use some little bit of a stipend, or just something to push them through, starting with the benefits, and a little bit, because we're going to drift off into a whole different other conversation. I don't want to do that. I want to keep the focus here, but I just wanted to piggyback off what you said, and applaud you for saying it. Hopefully more fighters realize it, and at some point it happens, because you guys definitely deserve it. I was thinking about Goz's question. Connor obviously is a unicorn, but Masvidal has become a pretty big money guy, the Diaz brothers.
Mm-hmm.
So now what we need is for that division to consistently, from 1 to 10 to 20, for all those guys to be pulling in that money, because you guys don't get tired. No disrespect to the big guys. I definitely don't want to have a problem with one of the big guys, but they do have that one punch power, but at some point they do get tired. And sometimes you don't see some of the spectacular techniques that
Mm-hmm.
that's afforded to the lighter weight classes the stuff that you guys can do in rounds 4 and 5 that sometimes they can't. Josh, I did want to ask you about 5 rounds. You've done it once before. I went down and you had a regional show. You have done it. Will that experience be valuable in any way just because now you know how you can distribute your energy across 25 minutes?
Yeah, and that's the thing. People, they've always said that, all gas. I have a great gas tank, and I can go for days. I feel like once the fight's over too, I feel like I'm just getting warmed up, so I can go a few more rounds. Yeah, and I was a lightweight champion on a regional scene that I used to fight for, West Coast Fighting Championship. So, I was scheduled for 2 championship fights. One of them didn't go the distance. I think I finished the guy in the 3rd round. The other guy, I think I finished him in the 5th or 4th. But yeah, that's never an issue to me. I push myself so hard in training, and I welcome getting tired because I know I'm going to get tired in the fight. So it's like I put everything into all of my training sessions, and I push and push and push for more than 25 minutes. So I know 25 minutes won't be an issue.
One time Gregor Gillespie, who's known for having a really, really good gas tank, he finished the fight like in the 2nd round, and he was huffing and puffing, and whoever the post-fight interviewer was, DC, Bisping, whoever, said, man, you're a little bit more tired than what we're used to seeing him. He goes, well, I pushed the pace a little bit more because one thing's for sure, no matter how tired I was, I knew he was going to be even more tired. So, as that fight progressed, it was only going to be 3 rounds. He knew he had that advantage. Seems like you have that type of confidence.
Yeah, no, I definitely do. It's you never know what it's going to be like. Typically, the training is harder than the fight itself. You know what I mean? Because we go at such a high output or such a high pace in training, and then a lot of times in the fights you're kind of moving around. But when you get into those scrambles and stuff, you know what I mean? It's it is taxing. It's definitely taxing on your body. But it's like everyone's going to get tired in a fight. So like I said, I welcome that, and I like to literally push myself to the brink in training just so I know the fight typically won't be as tough as training, but you never know. Kattar's a dog. You ask me that question after the fight and I'll let you know.
Yeah, you both are, man. This is going to be a great fight. I'm going to tab it as a number 1 contender fight. I know sometimes the fighters don't like to hear it because it might add pressure, but that's what gets the ball rolling when those guys on that Tuesday where they have the matchmaker meeting and they have to make their decisions. Hopefully they're making it based off the fact that 2 awesome fighters at 145 just proved that they're next for the champ. I did want to sneak in one last one. Have you been paying attention, you and the team, to 5-round fights? Round 3 decided Vieira and Holm. Round 1 decided Jan and Sterling. I believe round 1 also may have decided Namajunas and Esparza. So the whole tale is we really don't know what the heck's going on. As a team, are the coaches maybe being a little bit more honest nowadays in terms of communicating to the fighter and letting them know where they stand? Because the one thing that seems to be a common thread is when the fight's over and the fighter didn't get the decision, they're always left wondering like, gee, I thought I was up 4-1 or whatever. And it really only comes down to like a flurry, some volume in a certain key round, and that makes the difference.
Yeah, and that's one of the things with my coaches. I've worked with them for so long, and we're so close. So it's like, they're always honest with me. You know what I mean? Like in the rounds, like I'm like, how was that round? They're like, you won that. Maybe it's like the 2nd round, like, oh, it was super close. Like we need this round, and then I'll just come out there and have a lot more output and things like that. But they're super honest with me. They're not going to sugarcoat anything. They're not going to tell me. From their eyes, and I trust them. You know what I mean? They're seeing the whole thing. It's kind of hard when we're in the fight to know how well we're doing. So it's they'll tell me, hey, we lost that round. Hey, we need this round, like stuff like that. So I'm confident in my coaches. I trust them so much, and we're just going to keep doing the same thing we've been doing.
Right on, Meng. All right. Well, listen, Josh, it was great catching up with you. Thank you for the time here on a Saturday morning. I don't know if you're going to tune into the fights. I think you said you had a practice coming up, so we're going to tune into the fights. You go break a sweat. But thank you, as always, for your time here on MMA Junkie Radio. Good luck in the rest of your camp. Safe weight cut. Safe travels to Austin. And I hope you and Calvin Kattar have a fight of the year, man.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Hope you guys continue to do well and, yeah, get better.